To piggyback on the friendliness, the first thing that I noticed when I came to town and went in to register my car, that people are doing it at City Hall. The city clerk or any department that I ever went to, before I got involved in any committees or anything like that, I was talking about it. I took note of it. So.
Would that be considered human bureaucracy? Or human face on the...
Human face on city government.
Human face on city government.
Yeah, and services really, I would say too.
And
I
it
noticed
piggybacks
earlier
on
this.
what a lot of people have already said.
Yeah, this Dover's the #2 employer, the city of Dover's #2
Yeah,
employer, and
yeah.
so that's a lot of people who are treating people right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You mean treating people right or treating people correctly?
Yeah. However, it depends on your filter.
And do I ask you for a reason?
Sure.
I wanted to piggyback on the recreation comment. I think you might have been thinking about pools and ice arenas and things, I mean, that are clearly provided for by the city, but before the city really got here, there was recreation opportunities. You talked about the rivers, you know, fishing, open lands, walking, you know, outdoor sports that are just here, that the city never had to just promote because they're here. And that's a big attraction, I think, to the city. It's you can't get that in Portsmouth. And, you know, we're just a few miles north, and there's ample natural recreation.
How about saying it that way, natural recreation opportunities? Great. There's a lot of ideas on it. Mark?
No, as I said, the urban-rural balance is one thing that I'm for, and I think we have a pretty diversified city location, and all that's been said here. Yeah.
So, do you have anything that you
No,
want to?
no.
Oh, okay,
I'll add it.
okay. Because I thought we'd spend, that from 10 to 10:30 on the first question, and then 10:30 to 11 on the second question. So we have about 10 more minutes, and we'll also have that dot opportunity as well.
I think we need to combine these first before we go on to the next
Yeah.
question.
The mounted police,
Ow! Yes.
they add to the historic charm.
Christine,
I think everything, all my thoughts are.
they've been captured.
I have checked by everything.
Okay.
Me too.
Tom? Gary?
Just to clarify
Yeah.
on that city government bullet that we have there, I want to make sure that we include the department heads or the departments and the city services that the people get. I want to make sure that's included in there.
So when, alongside city government, we would say department heads.
The leadership, is that?
Well, just the services, whether it's the
Services.
police or whether it's community
Uh-huh.
services, whatever. If you've got a complaint, you get a response, in my experience.
Okay, so it's not only a human face, but it's responsiveness.
Yes,
Okay.
from all departments
Uh-huh.
that I've ever had experience to be with.
Okay, so does everybody feel like their ideas have been captured?
Yes, do we need it?
I'm going, yes.
Can I say just one more thing that has been on the back of my mind, I'm not supposed to really say anything,
Chris, thank you.
Christine Boston can vouch for the school's education.
I'm not saying anything about the school.
I
Okay,
mean, we have terrific schools and teachers here and staff, and
Yeah, we have people that just fill the gap every year, whatever needs to be
It's
done, and
unbelievable.
just make sure it happens for these
Well,
events.
that's a big draw for the community.
And we have
Yes.
parents who do that too,
Yeah.
so.
So great schools.
great schools. Okay, so what we'll do now, as Marcia said, before we vote on the dots, let's look through, Jay, let's slide these down. And we're trying to make a new clean copy that,
I don't even know if you can combine any of those, because they were so
They're-
diverse. I mean,
they are
just-
pretty diverse. Can we slide, can you sort of rejigger it so that? Well, does anybody see any kind of natural combinations here? I know, we've got historic character of downtown and a defined downtown with those
I think those are two different things.
two different ones. Okay, let's see, central, okay, growth, the rivers, community events, proximity to shopping, planned growth, targeted planning, quality of life.
I suppose it depends on how large category you want to make it. I mean,
Yeah.
you could, lump all those into 4 or 5 categories, but then you lose.
You lose
some-
the
Yeah, the real-
granular
Right.
quality. So there are 6 of you with 30 dots, so we have 30 dots, each person has 5 dots deep.
And Liz,
Yeah.
explain to, the thing is, even if after you put all your dots, it doesn't mean those other ones are gonna go
Right.
away. They're still gonna be counted, it's just when we go back into the group, they're gonna talk more about the ones that stuck out the most, but they're certainly gonna stay with us through the process.
How many dots are we trying to consolidate down to?
No, we will have 30 dots, and there's no aim, no particular number, but we will have dots, when, in just a minute, you can put dots next to the things that are really critical to you.
Oh, I see.
So that's the reason to try to compress here, so that you don't necessarily dilute yourself. Do you see any, I think it's, I do feel that.
List of what we like about Dover now. So trying to shift your thinking, and just want to say briefly, we've still got a bit of time if you need to use the bathroom or anything, if you want to go grab a cup of coffee, feel free to scoot out. But what we're going to switch to the next question, which is, what do you think will be the biggest challenges for the city in the future? And so we've identified maybe 23 points of what it is that we like about the city that we want to keep, and these are all the things that we want to still see. If we came back to this discussion 10 years from now, are all these things still on our list in 10 years? But now is your chance to kind of dream big. What is not there? What is not in our community that we want to see in our community? And we're not worried about budget. We're not worried about practicality. With maybe the exception of flying cars. What are the things that you think about in your daily life that maybe frustrate you, or maybe just you say, I've seen this in another community and I think that this is good enough for Dover. So that's what we're looking at, and it sounds like Mike has something.
I just wanted to add to what you just said, that we also should consider the sustainability of what we just put up with all those items, because with the austerity that we're living with, and it's not getting better, some of the things that we like about Dover, to sustain what we like, is itself perhaps a challenge for the future.
Absolutely.
It is indeed.
True, yep, and I just want to make sure, just keep in mind, you have to step back a little bit, because this is dreaming, so we're not necessarily worried about, we'll leave it up to our strong and responsible leadership after this part of the engagement process to, take a look at what is feasible and what can we put in the budget and the capital improvements plan and all those aspects. But today, as part of the let's develop a master plan discussion, we're really trying to think high level. What would we want the community to look like? Let's assume that the economy turns around, and it will, and let's assume that we come up with all these wonderful pots of money and our tax base continues to be diversified. What can we have in 10 years? So I think you're absolutely right. Trying to be practical and fiscally conservative are all very important, but today we're really just dreaming big. So try not to let that stop you from coming up with whatever ideas are great. And don't forget too, we're gonna come up with a big giant list just like we just did, and everybody will have a chance to kind of vote. So there will be some, that are gonna stand out as kind of, maybe in your mind you're gonna vote for, not only do I think this is a good idea, but I also think it's a practical idea that we should go after. So.
Jeremy, can you just clarify, are we moving on to question 2 here?
Yes.
We are, because I'm a little unclear, because when you just asked that question, I start thinking about things that I'd like to see over the next 10 years. But the question, as I read it, is what are the challenges or problems that Dover is facing as we look at the next 10 years?
Exactly. So it's a little bit two sides of the same coin. Challenges or problems in this part of the discussion, I think we're really looking at as opportunities to be addressed in the next 10 years. So we're looking at what are the biggest challenges for the city insofar as things that we see that are issues now or that could be issues in the next 10 years that hopefully will no longer be issues when we've completed this, this 10-year master plan, because the master plan says these are challenges and we want to address them. So it's both, really. You're saying here are things that we don't like maybe about the city or that we think could be a problem, but what we want, out of that, what do we want the city to be? Because we have these 23 things that we like, but I'm sure there's plenty of things that maybe aren't on that list that we're going to think of now that 10 years from now would be on the things we like about Dover list. Does that make sense? It's a little...
Sort of. I just don't want to see something that someone's dreaming and saying, hey, we want those flying cars in 10 years, and right next to it or right under it is some sort of obstacle to it. I feel like it's going to be a little confusing.
It is, and it's a little hard to explain. I apologize if I'm stumbling. Maybe if Roger floats in the room, we can get a little bit more. He may be able to explain this a little better than I can. But maybe if we just start going, we'll start to see. Like I said, we're kind of looking at the challenges that we see today as opportunities for the future. And I think I'm describing it a little bit more optimistically as let's dream big and think what we want the city to look like, but not so much in the flying cars respect as here's something I don't like, and I'm not supposed to color the discussion, but if I was to imagine, and this is just a wild example, but if I was going to say, I don't like having a highway in the middle of the city, I think the highway should be moved to the other side of the city, that is both a challenge. I don't like the highway being in the middle because it drags the character down of the city, but the opportunity is, let's build a better highway network or something. Does that make sense?
Sure, that
better? Okay.
I think I
jump in,
Sure,
Jeremy.
sure.
I think it would be nice if you could combine some of the themes that you came up with, if you have time, and maybe don't forget about voting. You have your dots and you're supposed to vote for something.
Yeah. Oh, were we supposed to vote after the first?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize. In the training the other night, I was given the indication that we were supposed to do our voting after both of them had happened.
Okay, well, that's fine.
I think as long as we go in there.
Sure. Yep. I'll make sure.
As long as we have time to get to
I'm
it.
gonna combine some of these, and you might want to do it in the bottom of that list.
Are we combining now or
No,
later?
we'll go back. We'll go back and revisit because I want to make sure that we move on this, and we
So
just.
you want to go on to this side?
Yep. So let's start with what we want to see. So challenges for Dover. So Dean, it sounds. Go.
I think I can start us off here.
Sure.
It's kind of a challenge and what I would like to see kind of thing combined here. As good as the downtown is now, we still need to diversify the downtown, particularly in a retail aspect. The retail, we have a lot of restaurants and we have a lot of food type, but the actual retail where people would go to shop on a regular basis is pretty slim.
So an improved downtown retail base?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So another way to put that, maybe we don't need to write this down, but just to make sure I understand, trending away from strip malls, having everybody drive down to the Fox Run Mall, more development necessarily on the north end, but kind of bringing a lot of those shopping opportunities back into the downtown where they were.
Right.
Okay, great.
Support local, buy local things.
Yeah, I mean, having people living downtown, which we've talked about, it certainly goes to helping that, but I mean, right now you can get on, you can buy a card, you can go get some jewelry, and if you want an antique or a curio type thing, you've got a lot of choices.
Yeah.
But if you need a shirt or a pair of pants or, everyday type thing, there's no place to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spend too much time comparing to other communities, but an example might be that there's a gap or maybe there isn't anymore, but there was a gap downtown in Portsmouth.
Right.
And that's the sort of thing where instead of having that in a mall that's outside of the community, that's the kind of store that maybe we'd like to see downtown. So not just necessarily the buy local, but let's just get those basic everyday needs downtown.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be local, could be a chain store.
But of course we prefer local, right?
What's up?
Can't color the discussion though. So thank you, Dean. Great way to start us off. Anyone else want to jump in? I know this is vague.
In order to have what Dean's talking about, you need an area for people to park.
Yeah, it's
That's-
parking,
Yeah,
exactly what I was just
parking
gonna
garage.
say.
I can
Yeah.
understand how but how many people can find a 15-minute spot?
Oh, I agree. I may have not said it earlier, but I think, are you saying that we need to think about like a parking garage?
Central
Yeah,
garage.
well, I'd agree with that. I just mentioned that our current system that we have now is better than what it was a few years ago.
Sure.
But the whole
Yeah.
purpose of that is to be able to generate funds to invest in
Well, that's
this
interesting.
parking
It's the first time I've
in the
ever heard
future.
that. But
Yep.
I think, something
Yeah,
Okay.
to help.
because
people.
even now
to make
with
it
the
more
parking, like, I'm not downtown during the day, so I haven't seen the effect that you have. But when I do go downtown, it's at night, when we don't have the meter, when the meters aren't on, and it's still a challenge, and I still do that infamous loop.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think on the idea of, us, we don't really want like the big garage like in Portsmouth, but like maybe a smaller type thing.
So
I'm just
I know,
throwing
but
ideas.
I know, but
You need to
we
do
gotta
something
get
to
David's.
facilitate.
Right.
Well,
right.
I'm just bouncing off.
No,
of
I
David's
understand,
here.
but we're walking that fine line there between debating each other's ideas.
No,
And
I
David-
wasn't. No, I was not looking at all to debate his. I'm agreeing that a garage or something like that is needed.
I understand. I just want to make sure we get David's idea out before we start. We're starting to break down a little bit. So David, what you're saying is,
You need to do something to help people, to make it easier for people
right? Okay.
to access.
There
Right. Okay. So as we're looking to improve our retail development downtown and continue to grow downtown as a center, we also need to improve our parking infrastructure.
Right.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Whatever that means. But I think
Yeah.
Dan might want to add a point number 3, which would be looking at some sort of parking garage that fits the character, because you were saying we don't necessarily want a big.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, we don't want the big garage like in Portsmouth. We don't want an eyesore. We want to keep, a lot of like with the waterfront project. I know a lot of the work is to try and keep the character of the downtown. Something along those ideas to still do that. But then to get to what David is saying, to help that. So I was really more just trying to play off of what David. I wasn't trying to
No,
disagree or anything.
I understand, and I'm not claiming anybody's trying to disagree, but I want to make sure that we're able. This one is a little bit more difficult because this is where we start to. It's easy to slip into your human nature of well, here let me play off your idea, but then they become a separate idea, and we have to be able to look at each of these as a separate point because at the end we're going to kind of. We're going to kind of vote so we can self-select, not to eliminate things because the whole project is going to include looking over everybody's idea, but to be able to report out at the end of the discussion this morning, we have to be able to kind of select them down to a couple. So I want to make sure that we can keep them votable, which means separate. So David's idea, looking at least some sort of, we need to improve the options for parking, and Dan's idea being a separate thought. If we're going to do a garage, we want to keep it, we don't want to have a big Portsmouth garage.
But there are several small parking lots in town, and if we had a company come in and look at the underground facility, with the structure underneath what's there, we might find that we could put in 2 underground stories of parking and then business or residential above that.
Okay.
Or
So,
even
Yeah.
two floors of parking, one of retail and one of residence, or
Yeah.
whatever,
That's good,
something that would keep the above ground in keeping with
They're looking
what
for
we're
that.
looking for, but provide parking at least for the people using that building.
Yep, so Ann, what it sounds like you're saying is, let's utilize above ground space for above ground uses, but perhaps take advantage of other opportunities to, kind of smartly
Hide our parking.
Yeah,
I
okay,
have it,
Yeah.
great. Okay, so, and maybe,
yeah.
maybe what we should do,
Yeah.
Well, especially where, at least for the building that's being built above it, there should be its own parking, and if there's enough for extra, for local around, that would be good too.
okay, so 3 might be explore opportunities to do underground parking. And I actually might suggest that we split point number 2 into a 2 and a 2A, like I said, just because we need to be able to
Yeah.
select different levels of ideas here. Okay, great.
I'm sorry, explore underground parking?
Explore opportunities for underground parking, good. And parking is always a hot topic, so it's very easy to just,
Yeah. Well, it is.
I understand that very well.
We also have a